I've got 12 houseplant care accessories that every houseplant owner needs to look after their plants. So these are the things that I couldn't live without when caring for my houseplants, and they make my life so much easier. For fun, I've ordered them by what I think is the most important and useful for me to look after my plants. So let's begin with number 12. Having a mister, such as the one I have, in your houseplant care kit can be super useful. I use mine primarily to help with my plant cuttings by misting the plants in my perlite propagation box. This lightly increases the moisture level in the perlite and the humidity in the prop box, which really helps the cuttings develop roots. I also use a mister to lightly moisten the soil of plants that are very young and tender and can't yet tolerate a good drink from a watering can. Don't use a mister for spraying the foliage of your plants, because this will do more harm than good to your plants. Check out my houseplant mist video for more details on this. Accessory number 11 on my list is a macrame hanger. So these can be an excellent addition to your home as a decorative item that allows you to hang plants from your walls rather than relying on windowsills and fireplace mantles in your home. So I have two macrame hangers. I've got one in my dining room here, and that has a Syngonium red arrow in. And I've got one in my living room with a spider plant in. So I think they both look fantastic and make for really interesting decorative pieces in my home. I think both of mine came from IKEA, and they usually come in various different colours to suit your taste. And all I've done to put them up is just screw a shelf bracket into the wall, and then I've drilled a hook into the bracket from which I'm hanging my plants. So they're really easy to set up, and I think they look really nice, so well worth an investment. Next on my list is rooting hormone. So obviously I use rooting hormone to help with rooting plant cuttings, and I find it really does help in rooting plants that are a little bit slower or temperamental to root, such as ficus plants. All you need to do is take your cuttings as you normally would, and then dip the ends into the rooting powder, dust off any excess, and then plant the cuttings into a medium of your choice. So you'll be able to find rooting hormone easily in your local garden centre or big box store, and it's fairly cheap, I think, and it speeds up the rooting process and also increases the success rate of rooting cuttings. So it can be super useful if you regularly propagate your plants from cuttings like I do. Number 9 on my list of top houseplant care accessories is the very humble watering can. So this may sound simple, but a decent watering can that is suitable for watering your houseplants can make the difference between you enjoying watering your plants or hating it and finding it a chore, and therefore avoiding the process. So I've got two watering cans in my collection. I've got my bright green one and my grey one. My favourite one is the bright green one. So it's important to have one that is comfortable to hold when filled with water, which my green one is, and also one with a long enough spout to allow you to water your plants easily. If you have plants in difficult to access places like I do, then you need a long spout to access the plant to give it a good drink. You also want one that does not allow the water to come out of the spout too easily, like my grey one tends to do. So look for one that is shaped more like my green one. Number 8 on my list is a necessity for houseplant care, and that is fertiliser. So plants need food just like you and me, so make sure you are fertilising your plants during the spring and summer to support their growth. Without fertiliser, your plants will not be getting enough macro and micronutrients, and growth will be stunted, and your foliage on the plants will start to look less vibrant. So I use Miracle Grow water-soluble fertiliser for my houseplants, and I use that about once a month in the growing season, spring and summer, and I don't fertilise at all during the winter. Plants don't need it in the winter. There are thousands of fertilisers out there, but just make sure that you're using one that is suitable for indoor plants, and do follow the instructions carefully. You don't want to over-fertilise your plants, as this will result in root burn on the plants, and this can harm your plants. For more info on this, then check out my fertilising guide that you'll be able to find on my channel. Number 7 on my list is a really decent pair of sharp pruners. So having sharp pruners will make your life much easier and your experience of looking after your houseplants much more enjoyable. For me, there's nothing worse than using a pair of rusty old pruners that don't cut properly to prune my plants. It really does make the experience less enjoyable. Having sharp and clean pruners is also good for your plants. Using blunt pruners damages the tissue of your plants because you're not able to take a clean cut. So this therefore introduces the possibility of infections and rot developing on the cut stems where you made the cut. Having dirty pruners also increases the risk of introducing bacteria to your plant. So do make sure to clean your pruners after every use. I don't really think it's necessary to sterilise your pruners, but do give them a good wash. If you've watched any of my videos before, then you will have seen my 6th item in the soil of most of my houseplants, and that is those yellow sticker cards used to catch adult fungus gnats. It's more than likely that you will have fungus gnats in the soil of your houseplants. This seems like a certainty in life as much as the sun rises and the sun sets every day, and these cards help you control the population and also gives you an indication of how many gnats you have in your houseplants. These cards are relatively cheap and can be bought on Amazon, so I've got a link to the ones that I use in the description. They're yellow because the fungus gnat is attracted to the colour yellow, and once you have planted the card into the soil of the houseplants, the fungus gnat will jump onto the card and get stuck because obviously the surface is sticky, and that will therefore disrupt the life cycle of the fungus gnat. So these cards are a necessary evil for me. They may not look amazing on your houseplants, but they do a good job. I've got a video on how to control fungus gnats, so have a look at that if you want to after this, guys. So we're now into the top 5 of my favourite houseplant accessories, and coming in at number 5 is Google Lens. This is an app that you will be able to download for free onto your phone, and it will allow you to identify the plants you have in your home. If you have a plant that you have no idea what it is or what its name is, then you can download the app, take a photo of the plant, and perform a search on the image, much like you would do with Google. Google Lens, the app, will then come back with some matches of what it thinks the plant is, and you can identify what the plant is and what its needs are. This is incredibly useful to make sure we know what our houseplants are and what they need. For example, you may have a kalanchoe in your collection that you might not know what it is and water it like your other normal houseplants, but if you looked it up on Google Lens, you will find out that it's actually a type of succulent and you shouldn't have been watering it as much as your other houseplants. So knowing this would save that plant. There are lots of alternative apps out there that charge a fee for the same functionality, but download Google Lens for free instead, and it does the same job. Good quality potting soil is one of the most important aspects of plant care, so potting soil is number 4 on my list. You want a potting soil that is rich in organic matter, has good drainage and is affordable. There are many pre-made mixes out there that you can buy, and you can buy this online or in store, or like me, you can make your own. So I mix good quality compost from my local garden centre with perlite for drainage, and my plants tend to be thriving. If you use poor quality soil with no drainage, then the plant's roots will start to suffer and your plant won't grow as vigorously. Third on my list of most useful houseplant accessories is something that I love and that really supports the healthy growth of houseplants, and that is Perlite. Perlite is a fantastic product that any gardener should have, and it's something I added to my arsenal about 4 or 5 years ago. It's great to add to your potting soil as a way of increasing drainage for the soil, and making it lighter for the plant's roots. So perlite is an extremely light and airy volcanic rock and is used to increase the aeration of soil in your houseplants. The roots of your plants like this because increasing drainage of the soil means the soil is not consistently wet. Don't put your plants in just compost, as this will be too dense for the plant's roots. I use about 4 parts compost and 1 part perlite, and all my plants seem to really like that ratio. For succulents, on the other hand, you would probably want to increase this to something like 4 parts compost, 2 parts perlite, to really help avoiding the soil getting too wet. So I use perlite as a propagation medium rather than soil and water. I find that the plants are quicker to develop roots in perlite than in water or soil. And also I find transferring the cuttings to soil from perlite is much less stressful for the young plant. So if you want more info on this, then check out my how to transfer water cuttings to soil video. I have an Amazon link for the perlite I buy in the description if you wanted to purchase some. The penultimate item on my list is grow lights. So grow lights are fantastic as they really help your plants push out strong new growth. I've got 2 grow lights in my house. I've got one in my dining room and one in my living room, and I find them really useful. The one in my living room is supporting the growth of my plants in a dark corner of that room. So without that light, I wouldn't be able to have as many plants there because it would be too dark for most houseplants. I also use this spot as a kind of rehabbing place for plants that aren't doing so well, and they usually perk up once they've been under the lights for a couple of weeks. And I'm using the one in my dining room as a kind of propagation setup where I'm growing out rooted cuttings into full plants. I find that young houseplants really like the light from a grow light and pushes them on to grow out into bigger plants. Grow lights are useful to supplement the amount of useful light for houseplants in your home, other than the sun, of course. My house tends to have dark corners in the rooms, and I obviously want to have lots of house plants, so I use grow lights to support this. I have an Amazon link for the grow lights that I have in the description. And number 1 on my list of favourite houseplant accessories shouldn't really come as a surprise to anyone that's been watching my channel, and it's my very handy moisture meter. So I bought this little thing on Amazon about 2 years ago, and it's probably the best thing I've ever bought for my houseplants. This device quickly and easily tells me exactly how much moisture is in the soil of my houseplants, and it completely removes the feeling of doubt when watering my plants. Obviously, watering your plant is one of the most important parts of houseplant care, and we need to make sure that they're not drying out too much and that they are not too wet either. If either of these things are consistently happening, then the roots of your plant will get damaged over time. So this moisture meter tells me how moist the soil is and whether I need to water the plant or not. If the moisture meter indicates that the soil is moist, then I obviously leave it a few days and then check again. The alternative way, of course, to checking the soil of your plants is to stick your finger into the soil, but generally I find this quite unreliable, fairly messy, and sometimes it's quite difficult to stick your finger deep into the soil of larger plants. So if you want to follow me and purchase this device, and I recommend that you do, there is an Amazon link to this in the description. If you want to know 9 houseplant care tips to really get your houseplants looking their best, then click on the link here and I'll show you some key things I do to my houseplants to get them to thrive. I'll see you there, and thank you very much for watching.